It's slammed! Chapter 11, last one standing. It's pay-per-view time. And, since we're happy about being here with wrestling, let's play some very wrestling-appropriate music. And let's get going with the story. Chapter 11, last one standing. At the last one standing pay-per-view in the Rogers Ballroom in Chicago, Illinois. Are you ready for this? You look up to see Forrest Dundee entering the unused conference room where you're preparing for your match. Or rather, quasi-shoot. Alex wants a good 7 minutes of pure performance between you and JJ before you and JJ get down to the business of beating the... I still don't really understand this premise that's been introduced in this story about have like a worked wrestling match and then at some point it's okay for you to just have a real fight. I don't understand this. You haven't had much direct interaction with Dundee since you returned. Since you're one of the privileged few who knows the Alex is the real head booker, the Alex of the GWA. You deal mostly with her. Still, on occasions where she can't contact you directly or immediately, she sends Dundee. Pre-show all done, you ask? He nods. Just about, so you should be on in 10 minutes. You've always had a suspicion that Dundee dislikes the fact that you were inducted into the inner circle so soon, but he's treated you with nothing but professionalism. I hope you're not disappointed that you'll be opening the show. Well, that can be disappointing, being the curtain jerker, being the opening act. Why are we opening the show? Well, let's be positive about it. I'm thrilled. The sooner I get my hands on JJ, the better. Dundee gives you a small smile. That's a good way of looking at it. Dundee limps into the room, his cane tapping on the floor. You didn't answer my question, though. Are you ready? This is, without question, the biggest match of your life. During the last week or so, you've been spending a lot of time with Madison Rio. At first, this was because you were worried about possible after effects from JJ's pile driver. Later, it was because you realized you genuinely enjoyed her company. Let's see. We grew closer and eventually confessed our love. There were no... Okay, well, we already made this... We took this vote last time about what the chat wanted to do concerning Madison. So, yes, we will confess our love. Your new girlfriend both meets and shatters your expectations. She's a chatterbox for sure. Her rapid-fire quips and off-tangents musings merely a way to corral a keenly questioning and well-educated mind. She has an opinion about everything and is willing to argue cheerfully about even her most loosely held opinions, but in more intimate, more personal matters. She can be surprisingly shy and unsure. It's a time of discovery for both of you, and her engrossing company makes it easy to ignore those who criticize your relationship. One reason that your time together is so precious is that you know time is short. Madison never forgets that she needs to return to Mexico to make life better in her homeland. Your fight with JJ weighs on you, as well as the tantalizing possibility of a title match with Solitary. But in talking to each other about your issues over the past few days, you feel like you've each lightened the other's burden. You've got no regrets over how you spent the days leading up to your big match, but are you ready? You tell Dundee, I'm ready. This is what everything's been leading to. Every step you've taken has been in preparation for this, and in preparation for the match, Madison has been edging you nonstop for the past 3 days. It's not what the story says, but, that's probably would get you really going. There's a approving roar from the crowd outside. Well, ready or not, it's time to go. Looks like the preliminaries are done. You give your leather top and pants one last check in the mirror, then squeeze past Dundee, your very first pay-per-view. It hasn't really hit you until now, who you're fighting, and who you might fight next. Overshadow the nature of tonight's show. Dundee walks you towards the main backstage foyer, then has you wait while he makes sure that JJ has already left for the ring. You hear the patented wolf howl. Ow! Then Dundee makes his way back to you. The booker places a light hand on your shoulder. Whatever happens out there, Kuno-S, don't forget the professional part of being a pro wrestler. Don't do anything that you'll regret tomorrow. This is weak. This week. Breakthrough. That's our music. Let's do the Ultimate Warrior run to the ring. That's always a good one. You burst through the curtain and keep moving, sprinting to the ring as fast as you can. You dive into the ring beneath the bottom rope and spring to your feet. But before you can attack JJ, the ref tangles himself between your legs with a running dive. By the time you've extricated yourself, security goons have filled the ring and are keeping you pinned to a corner by the sheer press of their bodies. Looks like Alex was prepared for a stunt like this. The whole time, JJ just stares at you. This isn't the same JJ that was at your kayfabe contract signing, the one who smirked at you, trying to get under your skin. This JJ is crouched in her corner, motionless but for her eyes, her body almost thrumming with suppressed energy. You can feel a similar energy welling up in you. It's more than just anticipation, more than just adrenaline. This is what a big fight feels like. As if any road you could have taken, any path you could have walked, would have had the sole purpose of leading you into this ring, right here, right now. Does that mean that our choices didn't matter? I'm not sure what it's saying there. The following match, intones the great narrator, is set for one fall. Introducing first, weighing 180 pounds, from Martinez in Solinde, JJ Havoc. JJ rises from her crouch slowly. The reaction she usually gets seems muted tonight, hushed as if half the audience is too busy holding its breath. Or maybe it's just that your head is buzzing too much for you to hear the crowd properly. And just one thing I want to mention is, as I was saying that, my phone buzzed to inform me I got an email from the WWE informing me of a sale, because I still probably should just put the WWE in the spam folder, but I keep forgetting to do that. And the reason I mentioned that is I saw that the email header was Brock Friday is happening now. And I was just looking at that for a few seconds, not getting the pun. Like, oh, yeah, I get it. That's okay. Brock Friday, sure. I understand. Okay. I just wanted to mention that. And her opponent from Martinez in Solinde, tipping the scales at 170 pounds, Kuno You throw your arms open to cheers from the crowd, but your mind is already on the fight, planning a strategy, anticipating JJ's opening salvo. The winner of this match goes on to face Solitary at Ring of Valhalla for the GWA World Championship. At the mention of the Eternal Champion, both you and JJ look to a special ringside seat. There, with the best seat in the house, sits Solitary, still in civilian attire, the championship belt slung over his shoulder. Even now, this close to your arrival, the glittering gold title holds your attention. Solitary smiles warmly at both of you, but the message in his bearing is clear. Bring it on, girls. So without further ado, ring the bell! Okay, we can lock up with JJ. We can circle her and wait for her to make the first move. We can press forward while striking, or charge low trying to tackle. Well, let's look at the stats. What do our stats look like right now? Strength is 60, technique 62, promo ability 58, kayfabe 60 versus reality is 40, favor is 77, heat is 23, ring awareness is 41, ring flash is 59. Well, strength and technique, not too much of a difference, but technique is just a tiny bit higher. But then again, we did learn big woman style. I don't know if that matters, or if that just gave a boost to our strength percentage. Let's just lock up and maybe just take a methodical pace here and try to figure her out. Without warning, the lights in the arena go out. As the fans alternatively gasp and babble, you look around frantically, trying to make out JJ's form in the darkness, all while a little voice in the back of your head screams, "No, no, they wouldn't." Then you feel strong hands grab you from behind. You struggle blindly, your foot connecting with the face of one of your assailants. But just as soon as he's been dispatched, another takes his place. By the time the lights come on, you and JJ are both being held stomach down in the middle of the ring. Around you stands a group of men and women, perhaps a dozen in all, their identities obscured by slate gray kerchiefs tied around the lower half of their faces, with a skull and scales logo, the logo of the Lawgivers faction. And there before you, unmasked and grinning down at you and JJ like a madman, is the faction second in command, Paul Prototype. Your fated match just got storyline hijacked. Oh no! They're running an angle over our match? But it was supposed to be our match. Chapter 11A, subject to change. All right. Hold them down. I don't think that's the voice I was using for Prototype, but it is now. Prototype says he usually looks out at the crowd. The fans have begun to throw things into the ring, and Prototype barely avoids being beamed by a still full tub of popcorn. But if the hate bothers him at all, Prototype doesn't show it. In fact, it's as if he's luxuriating in it. Paul Prototype, the man who just a few months ago was dead set against turning heel because he'd break too many precious little hearts. All right, so we've mentioned that Paul Prototype does seem to be an amalgamation of Triple H and John Cena. And a kind of a well-known thing is that John Cena was the top face for many years, and people wondered why didn't they turn him heel, because that would have, freshened things up. And the answer always was that he visits a lot of Make-A-Wish kids. Because that's like a common request from Make-A-Wish for famous wrestlers to visit the kids. And John Cena did a tremendous number of that, and that was always the only reason anyone ever gave for why he never turned heel, which I thought was kind of an odd explanation. I mean, I understand making the Make-A-Wish thing, but maybe John Cena was just never interested in turning heel, and that was just a reason they gave. What's the matter, Chicago? I'm not interrupting anything, am I? Prototype spreads his arms wide as the boos and foreign objects rain down. Well, too bad. You don't get to see your two precious little amateur stars fight tonight. The Gua is under the rule of law. And we make the laws, shouts the kerchief chorus. You try to take stock of your situation. One man is holding you down with a hand on top of your head and a knee between your shoulder blades. Another is helping immobilize you by pushing down on both your ankles. Well, let's see. Biting the hand is a very Kuno-esque move. Let's go for that. You try to turn your head enough so that you can chomp down on the man's hand, but he soon wises up as to what you're doing. He shifts his grip from one hand to two, then slides both hands to the back of your neck. You curse in frustration. Hey, champ, says Prototype, leaning over the ropes closest to Solitary. Oh, this is pretty good music for this segment. From your worm's eye view of the proceedings, you can see that the Eternal Champion has risen to his feet and is gazing at the tableau with a mixture of anger and disgust. Hey, what's the matter, huh? Not enjoying the view? Solitary says something that you can't hear from where you are. Solitary doesn't have a microphone, but you doubt it's complimentary. Prototype just laughs it off. You thought you were so smart, denying me my rightful rematch, bypassing me and a locker room full of seasoned veterans. Actual threats for these... Prototype spares a glance over his shoulder at you and JJ. These women! Solitary grabs a microphone from Nick Varnish as Prototype continues to rant. Why? I'll tell you why. Because you wanted an opponent that you... No, this is Prototype still talking. Why? I'll tell you why. Because you wanted an opponent that you could be sure you'd beat. Why else sully professional wrestling's most prestigious title by allowing this farce? You growl low in your throat. You hear a similar sound from your right and lock eyes with JJ. And for once the two of you are united in hate for this misogynistic remnant of the bad old days. I don't have to listen to this crap, Meltzer. says Solitary, using Prototype's real last name. It's an odd choice for a name. Paul, as Dave Meltzer is a very long time wrestling reporter, I guess you could say, reporting on the doings on the inside of wrestling. He's been doing it for I don't know how long, decades now. You want to play make-believe tough guy? That's fine, but I'm not getting involved. It's a smart play. Would have done the same thing. Can't believe Solitary would walk away. But what about my title shot? You can't believe that you're seeing a potential main event spot at the Gua's biggest show slip away from you. Oh, I won't stop you, says Prototype. I know very well what your contract says. I also know that, what other liberties you may have, you must defend the world title at Ring of Valhalla. It's too bad, then, that neither of your two sacrificial lambs will be in any condition to fight. Solitary is already walking up the ramp. He doesn't even look back, just flips Prototype off. That's when JJ screams. You swivel your head to see your rival's left arm being pulled back painfully, 3 lawgivers holding her down, while another woman wrenches back the arm. Your mind quickly takes in the expression on JJ's face, the angle of the limb, and the way the hold is being applied, and you come to one inescapable conclusion. This is a shoot. Couldn't happen to a nicer girl. Whatever I feel about JJ, this is a crime. No way am I going to let an injury keep us from fighting again. I think this is probably would be most accurate. We want to fight her. We don't want someone to break her arm. Like, and it's not us. Like, if anyone's gonna break that lady's arm, it's gonna be us. Maybe you two just aren't destined to fight, whispers a small voice in the back of your head. You squelch that thought violently. Both of you want this too much. Both of you have waited too long. For it to end like this at the hands of a stranger? No way in hell. Let her go, you bottom feeders, you growl. This isn't your fight. Even in the midst of your pain, your verbal defense is enough of a shock to get JJ to look at you with wide eyes. Solitary turns at the sound of JJ's scream. His face is a mask of disbelief. You can't be serious. Prototype moves directly behind JJ's assailant. Can't I? Think this through, Stevens. Do you really doubt the lengths I would go to? Solitary takes a step forward. He doesn't even realize it. You'll go to prison for this. Will I? Prototype looks ridiculously smug. You've been so obsessed with the contents of your contract, but have you bothered to check the papers these fine women signed? You tried to think back to your own contract. Mostly remember paragraphs of legalese. Of course, there have been provision exempting the Gua from liability from injury sustained in the course of a show. That really would not cover this, though. Like, that really does not apply to this particular situation that we're seeing here. But this is an intentional assault. Then again, the provision would have to be able to cover shoot fights as well, right? Didn't shoot fights involve intentional assaults? But, I mean, it's not a match happening right now. Like, it's specifically the match ended, right? This is a storyline. Technically, you realize this is still part of the show, because they made it part of the show. You realize with a flash of insight that the mixture of kayfabe and reality in today's wrestling shows would make it more difficult than ever to prove what was or was not planned in advance. Not really. Like, if a wrestler said they broke my arm, and, like, I obviously didn't agree to that, like, I don't think there's not much of a question there. Whether that hold up in a court of law is beyond you, but Prototype would certainly have some room to argue, and also access to the best lawyers money could buy. But that'd only be if the Gua took Prototype's side. Solitary seems to have arrived at the same conclusion, because he suddenly smiles. You talk big, big man, Solitary says, but I know that you're on a leash, and I know who holds the other end. Paul shrugs. I've always said that I'm merely the second in command of the Lawgivers. I'm not talking about you stupid kayfabe boss, Solitary begins, but then he stops mid-sentence, his jaw hanging slack. From your position, you can't see what's going on, except that one of the Lawgivers, a woman, has removed her mask. You crane your neck, trying to see, and then the woman raises her arms and twirls around for the crowd to get a good look at Alex. Alex Dobbs. I mean, this still would not really change anything in court. Your stomach seems to sink into the ring as all the Lawgivers, save those holding you and JJ, fall down to one knee. Even Prototype is genuflecting as he hands Alex his microphone. "Hello, Hodge," says Alex, and the voice she's using is the voice that you know, suffused with calm authority. "I think it's time to renegotiate the terms of our arrangement." You know, Alex's voice is the only one that I can remember that I was doing. Like, I never can remember what voices I might have been doing for any of these characters, but the voice for Alex is the one I always remember. Solitary's mouth moves, but no sound comes out. The crowd is just as shocked, a loud buzz going through the arena. Not cheers or jeers, but the sound of 10,000 voices asking questions at the same time. "For the record," says Alex, "I don't agree with Paul's assessment of you. I don't think you're looking for an easy fight. I think you picked Kuno-S and JJ Havoc because you wanted the best possible fight. And by best, I mean what would make you the most money. You take a massive cut from the pay-per-view buys, and you and I both know that no match with anyone else, including Paul Prototype, will draw as many eyes as a match against one of these two superstars." From the expression on Solitary's face, Alex's word must have hit the mark, at least partially. "This isn't like you, Alex," says Solitary. He jabs a finger in your direction. "You've made this one your pet projects for months, and now you're telling me you'll betray her? Risk her leaving the Gua to salve the ego of Paul Has-Been?" "This isn't about Paul, and this isn't about Shadow," says Alex, pointedly not looking at you. It's about you, Hodge. You're not a professional wrestler anymore, and that's a problem. And here's my solution." Alex turns to address the crowd. "Tonight's main event will still be Team Gua versus the Lawgivers, 4-person teams in a Scaffolds and Ladders match. But Team Gua will be composed of JJ Havoc, Kuno-S, the GWA World Champion Solitary, and another wrestler of Solitary's choice. If Team Gua wins Solitary, you can go on to face whomever you want at Ring of Valhalla. I'll even let you skip your defense this year. But if the Lawgivers win, Paul Prototype becomes Gua World Champion." The crowd expresses their opinion of the stipulation with an arena-shaking round of boos. Prototype waves at the crowd. Solitary narrows his eyes. "And if I don't agree?" Alex sighs. For a moment she looks your way, and you see genuine regret in her eyes. You think. You're not sure anymore. "Then I cut my losses and try again." "Take the damn deal!" shouts JJ, her arm still twisted. Solitary looks at you. "Let's see. We can agree, because if Solitary isn't champion, we can't give a title shot. We can agree, because we can't fight JJ if one of us gets injured. We could shake our head if it's a trap. Do nothing, it's Solitary's title. It's Solitary's decision. I'm not actually sure at this point how much any of our choices end up actually meaning anything. It's kind of hard to say, but why don't we leave this one to a vote for the chat? Number 1 is not our... Well, number 1 and 2 are both not our head. Number 3 is shake our head. Number 4 is do nothing. What does the chat think about that? Which one should we go with? Looks like 3 is in the lead. Even if we were to combine 1 and 2, which are both not our head, 3 is still ahead. It does look... Well... It does look like 3 will probably win. Two is fairly close. No, it does look like 3 is taking it. We shake our head. This has got to be a trap. Solitary drops his microphone and climbs up onto the ring apron. Prototype takes a step towards him, but Alex waves him away. She hands Prototype her microphone, then moves to stand in front of the Eternal Champion. "You've publicly committed to every defense of the World Championship being a shoot," says Solitary. "It will be," says Alex. You know their words are not carrying beyond the confines of the ring. "A shoot in a Scaffolds and ladders match." Alex nods. Solitary looks like he wants to tear her throat out with his teeth. "Look at it this way," Alex says. "I could just force you to vacate the title instead. This way, you'll have a fighting chance." "I'd never have vacated the title," Solitary growls. Alex looks at him with absolute zero expression on her face. Her next words come slowly, deliberately. "Do you really want to find out for sure?" Solitary clenches his hands, then spits into the ring, narrowly avoiding Alex's feet. "You're gonna regret this." Alex just holds out a hand. With reluctance, Solitary shakes it, then drops back onto the floor. Alex takes her microphone again. "Ladies and gentlemen, it's official. For the first time in years, the GWA World Championship will be defended at last one standing." All right, so at the beginning of the match, they're changing the card dramatically, canceling the anticipated big match between Kuno-S and JJ, and changing the main event. That's some good wrestling business right there. "I have your money anyway." When you and JJ get backstage, it's chaos. Wrestlers and production staff running around like headless chickens. From a pocket of calm in the corner of the foyer, Solitary motions imperiously for you and JJ to join him. Well, maybe calm isn't the best word to use. Solitary is practically radiating anger. "Listen," he says, "I need to find Kay. Super Horns. I need to find her and tell her that she's our fourth. Can I count on you to keep from killing each other until I get back? Can I count on you to work with me tonight?" You and JJ look at each other. "I'm game if she is," says JJ. You can feel the anger from JJ as well. Whatever it takes to make sure we have no more interruptions. Let's see, we could say as long as our deal still holds to Solitary. We could agree with JJ. We can say as long as JJ can not push us off the scaffold. And we can say that we'll try, no promises. Well, I think we should be pragmatic about it and just say, yeah, sure, okay, we'll agree. Solitary looks from you to JJ. "Well, look here, common ground. We're acting like a team already." The Eternal Champion looks at his watch. "We got 2 hours, give or take, before we hit the ring. Study tapes, mend fences, call home. I don't care. Just don't, for the love of God, hurt each other." Solitary pats you both on the shoulder, then makes his exit, leaving you, JJ, in a tense awkwardness in his wake. After a moment, JJ shrugs. "Guess it's a havoc and chaos reunion of sorts, then." Let's see, we could say one night only, doesn't make us buddies, or at least we don't have to pretend to hate each other. I wouldn't say we were pretending. We'll just say it's one night only. JJ grins. "Wouldn't have it any other way." JJ looks up at a large digital clock placed above the curtained off exit. 2 hours, huh? I think it's certain Alex Dobbs owes me some answers. I'm off to collect. She looks at you. You can come with, if you want. We can say, let's go, split up, but also be insulting about it, and then, or just walk away. Well, I'll say let's just go with her. It takes a while, but eventually you and JJ find Alex in one of the more accessible rooms in the backstage area. It seems like the cat is out of the bag in more ways than one. You wonder if Dundee's told people that she was the one with the last word on bookings. Your path to her door is admittedly barred by a pair of burly security goons with nightsticks. "No admittance," says one. JJ looks from one guard to the other. "Tough guys, huh? I want you to take a good look at me and my friend here. Then I want you to think about whether you're being paid well enough to make it worth the stint in intensive care." Now, the options are slam my fist into my palm, growl, or smile. But obviously the best choice, which is question their ability to make bird calls, it's not here. We know that works. It's not an option. I'm disappointed at that. I feel that is short-sighted. You're confronted with suited goons. You make sure that they know that you don't think they can make bird calls. I am going to growl. Grrr. Your growl is almost feral, and you see a guard swallow hard. Gulp! Let them in, calls Alex from within the room. Reluctantly, the two mountains of muscle part. JJ laughs. Alex is watching the show from one of her wall monitors. She's still dressed in her Lawgivers outfit. Well, if the two of you are on speaking terms, then you must really hate my guts. You look at JJ. She gestures for you to go ahead. You will just give her a lot of forest speak curses. You remember Kuno-S having that forest language? Alex weathers your verbal barrage with a small smile. When you stop to take a breath, Alex speaks. Got it all out of your system then? I'd like to have a go too, says JJ. Alex shakes her head and sighs. Shadow, I told you before. I want Solitary to relinquish control. The only way I can have any sort of leverage with him is if I control who he will face at Ring of Valhalla. Since he is, contractually, the one who ultimately decides who his opponent will be, I needed to create a situation where I limited the number of possible opponents to those of my choosing. Alex looks away from the monitor. So I made you stars. The brightest stars in the Gua. It wasn't easy, but you already had the best raw material, you had the talent, the desire, and most importantly, a story. It was your story that lured Solitary out, and when I knew that he wanted to become a part of that story, maybe even its climax, I used that as my leverage. But the only way to spring the trap was to do it in the public eye, where Solitary would be unable to be completely selfish without ruining his image in the eyes of his fanbase. Trust me, if the Lawgivers had jumped you without the cameras rolling, Solitary would have let you be beaten down without batting an eyelash. Alex focuses on you. I told you that you'd be a tool. You've become one that exceeded my expectations. Like a Dremel. Like you can put a lot of attachments on that. It can do a lot more than you might have thought it could. You're like that. You're like that. We can say that she's gotten what she wants. What about what I want? We can thank her and say what happens now. Or we can say that you're speaking like it's a foregone conclusion that Team Solitary is going to lose. No, says Alex. I'm speaking like it doesn't matter who wins. If Solitary loses, then control of the title comes back to me. Through Paul. Even if Solitary retains the title, well, you saw how angry he was. He'll be gone after this year's ROV, and the only reason he won't quit right now is he wants one last big ROV payday. I don't care who is champion come ROV, and neither should either of you. You and JJ exchange a look. If Paul is world champion after tonight, you'll get your match, and you get it on the grand stage at ROV. Alex shrugs. If Solitary manages to retain the title, you'll have their match on Wednesday's show, and the winner will have a title shot at Ring of Valhalla, just like you originally planned. Only Solitary and Paul have something to lose here, and I hope... Alex's cell phone vibrates, and when she sees who's calling, she winces. And I'll have to cut this short here, ladies. Come see me after the show and I'll hear any other grievances you may have. But for now... Alex mutes the TV and places the phone next to her ear. Yes, mother? This would be your cue to leave. The two of you make your way back to the main backstage foyer. By the digital clock, you've still got close to an hour left before the main event. JJ looks at the clock and looks at you. I have some things that I need to see to before the bell. I'll meet you and the champion back here in an hour. JJ turns away. You know, we probably want to ask her about the drugs. We should probably ask her about the drugs. Why'd you do it, JJ? JJ stops. Your old friend turns around, her expression inscrutable, but for a moment you feel like she's actually going to answer. Then she shakes her head and favors you with a small smile. After you and I fight, win or lose, if you still want to know, I'll tell you then. With that, she raises one hand in farewell and walks away. JJ arrives at 5 minutes before the agreed time. Solitary follows soon on her heels, saving you from more awkwardness with your arrival. By Solitary's side is Super Horns, who shakes first JJ's hand, then yours. You've come a long way from Near Fall Academy, the legendary wrestler said. Last time we were in a ring together, you were just raw potential. But you're very much cooked now. Very well done. You've grown in leaps and bounds since then. I look forward to seeing how much. Yes, we did fight Super Horns back in the NFA, the NFA, and we lost quite poorly, quite badly if I remember. Okay, Solitary claps his hands. Enough with the introductions, Kay. Let's get to strategy. Relax, Hodge, says Super Horns. You know you're not at your best when you go into a fight rattled. I can't really help it now, can I? Solitary says. Didn't expect to be defending my championship tonight. It's just a title, Hodge, Super Horns said. You think your legacy would be hurt at all, even if you dropped it tonight? You've got bigger. Solitary snaps his fingers in front of Super Horns' face. Focus, Adachi. I need your A game today. Super Horns shakes her head. When have I given you anything else? Solitary breaks down the strategy for you and JJ, such as it is. A Scaffolds and Ladders match is a bit different from your ordinary match. Roughly 20 feet above the ring, a grid of scaffolds will be suspended from the ceiling of the arena. The only way to ascend to the scaffolds is by taking one of the ladders scattered outside the ring and setting it up inside the ring. The object of the match will be to retrieve the GWA World Championship belt hung above the center of the scaffold grid. There are no countouts or disqualifications in the match, no pinfalls or submissions either. Once a wrestler ascends to a scaffold, if he or she is knocked off it, that a wrestler is eliminated from the match. Sometimes that's a moot point. It's uncommon for a wrestler who falls 20 feet to still be able to do much afterwards. So, it says 20 feet above the ring. So the ladder match, of course, is a real match, but the ladder would... How tall would you say the ladder is? Like 10 to 12 feet, maybe? Apparently this says you're taking a ladder up to a scaffold that's 20 feet above the ring. So that's not really something... I mean, the scaffold matches were an actual thing. They were not... They're kind of poor matches, though. Because on the scaffolds, they can't really do much in the way of wrestling. The whole idea of the scaffold match is just to see someone take the big fall off the scaffold. It was like an indie thing, like WCW. Well, the NWA did some of that. Not really a match you see these days, because it's not a very good kind of match. So this sort of seems like they're combining the ladder and the scaffold match to make some sort of extreme ladder match. Is it going to be exciting? Are we freaking out? If this was a worked match, it would be one thing, but a shoot worries me. Hey, let's be excited about it. Our big pay-per-view match. Let's be excited. Knowing Paul, the proto-misogynist, says Solitary, it's unlikely that he'll bring any of the women lawgivers. That means we're likely looking at a lineup of Prototype, Michael, Crusher, and Paul's little apprentice, Zeus. He could try to swerve us, JJ says. But Solitary waves the idea away. This is as close as he's gotten to the belt since the last time he main evented ROV. He's not going to take a risk. That means their strategy will be to send Michael up for the belt, while Crusher, Paul, and Zeus try to keep the rest of us busy. Solitary looks at JJ, then you, then back again, clearly thinking something through. I want 2 people going for the belt to maximize our chances, Solitary says. That'll be Horns and Kuno S. JJ and I will take care of the bruisers. Honestly, I'd probably be enough by myself, but this isn't enough to take chances. Let's just roll our eyes at maybe a little bit of overconfidence. Solitary catches your expression and grins. It's not arrogance when you can back it up, girl. All 4 of you look up as you hear the shuffling of cards that serves as the hook for Solitary's entrance theme. It's not much of a hook. Like, if I heard... Like, I don't know, you usually would expect a much more louder and aggressive sound. The sound of a deck of cards being shuffled. It's not that loud or aggressive, really. That'll be for all of us. Eyes on the prize, folks. We pull this off, and I'll make sure each of you is as happy as I will be. JJ shakes her head. Let's just get this over with. She looks at you, then away. I'm in the mood to hit something. Hey, why don't we take a look at that scaffold? Probably would be a good idea to get just a good look at it ourselves before we head into that match. As far as you're concerned, this is an unnecessary, irritating, and above all, dangerous detour. The last thing you need at this point is an injury, but escaping this match unscathed seems unlikely. Team Solitary bursts through the curtain as "Never bet against the champ" blares across the arena. The crowd reaction is mixed, partly because Solitary is a deeply divisive figure, partly because your impromptu team mixes faces and heels, but earth-shaking. Oh, the crowd reaction is mixed but earth-shaking, and then there's like a lengthy interlude between those two parts. It seems like whether cheering you or booing you, everyone is doing it at full volume. You imagine that the four of you make quite an impression walking down the ramp. It's Solitary's first non-solo match in years, and he's flanked by the best of the old, super horns, and the best of the new. But what makes an impression on you, and JJ, you can tell, is the scaffold grid, consisting of 6 separate walkways, 3 down and 3 across, about 2 stories above the ring. Each walkway is composed of a flat top and runged bottom, and each is suspended from the roof by thick cables. You note, with some alarm, that the grid is larger than the ring, while the portion of the floor surrounding the ring has been buttressed with thick mats. If you fall from the scaffold and miss the ring, an injury is not only possible, but likely. And if you hit a turnbuckle or fallen ladder, well, try not to think about that. Yeah, it doesn't seem like a very, I don't know, the way this wrestling organization does things seems like it's not, maybe you wouldn't want to work for it, is what I'm thinking. Maybe you just wouldn't want to work for this company. It's probably better ways of making some money. The four of you enter the ring as Varnish makes the introductions, each of you taking a position at a different turnbuckle. You've barely finished your usual pose when the Lawgivers music starts. Instinctively, you look up into the stands from which the Lawgivers usually make their entrance. And their opponents, says Varnish, led by Paul Prototype, 4 members of the Lawgivers. There, you see Prototype descending the stairs, followed on his heels by Zeus, and a few rows round, the Dioscuri? That's a surprise. So Solitary was wrong about who he thought would be wrestling. Doesn't make sense. There's got to be a catch. Your suspicious nature serves you well. Instead of watching the 4 Lawgivers moving toward the ring, you check behind you, just in time to see Crusher Asbury and Angel Michael slide into the ring. With a shout of warning, you hit Crusher with a dropkick, while JJ turns in time to fend off an attack from Michael. The 2 Lawgivers slide back outside. Meanwhile, the Dioscuri have vanished while Prototype and Zeus join their teammates on the outside of the ring. That let you assume that the 4 heading towards the rings were the official team members, while Crusher and Michael lay in wait. Crafty, but not technically a cheat. Nothing that would have the fans questioning the authenticity of the event. Prototype makes a circling motion with his finger, and each of the Lawgivers takes a side of the ring. In unspoken agreement, each of your team faces off with a Lawgiver. You end up gazing down at Zeus. The former Near Fall Academy front-runner seems to have lost muscle mass, but gained muscle definition in the months since you last saw him. He gives you a small nod of recognition, but no more. Well, it's not like you were close. Maybe because throughout the show, somewhere in the back of your minds, both of you wondered who was better. It looks like tonight, you get to find out. Let's see, we could wait for him to make the first move, we could verbally goad him into attacking, or we could slide out of the ring and confront him on the ground. Well, Kuno S is good at talking, so let's do some verbal goading. Try as you might, you can't get a rise out of Zeus. He doesn't even seem to be listening, or at least not to you. It's as if he's waiting for a signal. Instead of trying to assault your superior positions in the ring and leave themselves open to attack, the Lawgivers each reach for one of the 4 ladders scattered outside the ring. Now, suddenly, the tactical advantage is reversed. Zeus wastes no time thrusting the ladder at you between the top and middle ropes. We could, well, jumping on top of the ladder seems like a strange idea, but I like it, so we're going to jump on the ladder. You try to jump over the ladder, but you mistime your jump. The unforgiving steel slams into your left leg. Man, we've been going at this story for quite some time. I think this is the first time they've referred to the unforgiving steel. That's one of the best wrestling sayings. Sends you spinning to the mat. You groan in pain as Zeus takes advantage of your momentary incapacity to climb into the ring, ladder in hand. By the time you've recovered enough to get back to your feet, the tone of the competition has changed. The first thing you notice is that Superhorns is out, her body slumped against a ring post, and with her goes Solitary's carefully crafted battle plans. While JJ is keeping Angel Michael from making much headway up the ladder, Zeus has set up his own, and unmolested, he is more than halfway to the scaffold. Solitary's noticed the danger and is racing towards Zeus, but Paul Prototype and Crusher are hot on Solitary's tail. You're certain that Solitary could beat the two wily veterans back, but all they need to do is delay Solitary long enough for Zeus to take the belt. Let's see. I don't have the first two options available. But I could pull Crusher into a submission maneuver. I could grab Crusher and slam him into a ladder, or I could tackle Crusher into the ring post. I don't know if I like the ring post one, because a common thing is for like the guy to get out of the way, and then the person will just like ram into the ring post themselves. It's like a Goldberg thing. Like sometimes he would go for the spear, and then the opponent would dodge, and then Goldberg would head into the ring post. That's like a kind of a spot that Goldberg would do a few times. A submission maneuver doesn't seem like it would be a very effective use of time in such a match. All I can say is that maybe we'll grab Crusher and slam him into a ladder, and we'll see how that goes. You don't think you can take out both Prototype and Crusher at once, but if you can take one out, the other shouldn't be able to slow Solitary down much. Crusher's the one lagging behind, limping slightly from some damage already received, and that gives you your opening. You intercept Crusher, and with a loud yell, slam the fat man into one of the ladders in the ring. Crusher rolls around on the mat, cursing and groaning. He's going to be out for a while. A blur of motion shoots past you, as I guess Superhorns has tapped into the Speed Force. Superhorns clambers up the ladder as fast as a normal man could run a straight line. A good thing, too. Michael dumps JJ over the side just before Superhorns arrives, and while JJ manages to cling to the end of the scaffold, she can't help much. Not that it seems to matter. Working together, Solitary and Superhorns seem invincible, and JJ is almost an afterthought, as the two friends, old friends, quickly clear the scaffold grid of the Lawgivers. Angel Michael falls flat, after being hoisted over the shoulders of Solitary and drop-kicked by Superhorns over the side. The two help JJ back up to the scaffold, and Solitary lets out a triumphant shout and raises his hand. And that's when Superhorns pushes him off the scaffold. I can't believe the treachery. You shake off your shock and rush up the scaffold. You stop just out of Superhorns' reach and see that JJ is taking position on the opposite side. Meanwhile, the masked wrestler is staring down at the crumpled form of Solitary. Let's see. So we could ask, what was the price of friendship? We could ask why. We could tell Superhorns that we're going to make her eat that mask, or I could say I thought JJ was the only Judas on the team. Let's ask why. Considering how badly we did against Superhorns during our match, I don't know if we should just attack her. Why? At least tell us that. Or, get out of our way and tell us after we win this match, says JJ. Oh, this is rich. I couldn't have planned a better ending. Did JJ say that, or I think Paul Prototype said that. You see Paul Prototype step onto the scaffold behind JJ, applauding loudly. JJ instantly shifts sideways, eyeing Prototype warily. You realize that, since Prototype wasn't on the scaffold earlier, he hasn't been eliminated. Are you saying that you didn't have anything to do with this? You ask. Oh, how I wish. Prototype shakes his head. I'm as mystified as you, but I don't care why Horns did it. All that matters is, today, I regain what is rightfully mine. I think you're overestimating your odds, says JJ, in that quiet tone she uses when she's about to get serious. Meanwhile, even though Superhorns hasn't said anything, the set of her mouth and the posture of her body suddenly makes it clear she's about to attack. 2 on 2, you versus the woman many claim to be the best thing in wrestling. For all the marbles. Okay then, no pressure. Prototype roars a challenge, and the battle is joined. So we could focus on knocking Superhorns off the scaffold, or focus on keeping our balance on the scaffold. Well, maybe I'll let the chat decide that. What is our tactic here in this moment of crisis? We're standing on the scaffold. Do we attempt to just go all out, attempting to knock Superhorns off? Isn't maybe an offense is the best defense? Or do we focus on keeping our balance on the scaffold? So that would be, I mean, when we had our match with Superhorns, it didn't go so well. Like, maybe it would be better now. Like, maybe we could do better now. But, I mean, I guess in our recent wrestling matches, we have done actually better. Like, we have done pretty well. We have actually won matches. So, I suppose we are better than we were at the time. But maybe... I mean, if we fall off, it's going to be real bad. Because then it's going to be 1 on 2. JJ has to fight the both of them. Maybe we should just keep... Yeah, I think that's what we'll do. Maybe we'll just keep our balance. You're not confident in your ability to commence an all-out attack against Superhorns while maintaining your balance on the treacherous scaffold. Yes, the scaffolds. So treacherous. Now the Superhorns attacking you as well. On the other hand, you're confident that you can withstand her onslaught and stay on the scaffolds long enough for Superhorns to tire and make a mistake. And that's when you'll strike. Good on paper, but in reality it takes much longer for Superhorns to slip up than you'd expected. You're feeling fatigue gnaw at your muscles when at last she swings too wide with a kick, and you're able to push her over the side with a shoulder bump. Not the flashiest of moves, but you'll take any opening you can get. You feel your heart stop when Superhorns tumbles over the edge, but then the masked wrestler manages at the last instant to grab the scaffold with one hand. You know better than to give Superhorns any room to recover. You aim a boot directly at the masked wrestler's fingers, but she lets go before you make impact. You stare in disbelief. Did she just give up? No, Superhorns is merely moved to the rungs running beneath the wooden planking that serves as the surface of the scaffold. Now she's moving beneath you, agile as a chimpanzee, heading towards the center of the grid, which hangs the bell. Okay, so she's hanging beneath the scaffolds and is like climbing on those rungs. I guess what's happening? I don't think we want to drop down onto the rungs. That sounds like a bad idea. We could shake the scaffold, see if we could shake her off, or we could try to go for the belt ourselves. Let's try to shake her off. Maybe her grip meter is running low. Superhorns doesn't seem to have any problem crawling along beneath the scaffold, but that's only because the rig is holding steady. Even your careful footsteps on top are enough to sway the scaffold a little, but what would happen if you moved? You begin jumping around on the scaffold, and immediately the grid begins to sway dangerously. It's too much even for Superhorns, and the masked wrestler has to crawl back on top. You use that chance to close the distance. No one is taking that belt until you and the masked wrestler have settled things. You and Superhorns approach each other warily. You've taken each other's measure, and you both know that this isn't going to be an easy victory for either of you, but chances are that it'll end quickly when it does. This high up, this close to the end, with this much pressure. One slip-up is all it will take. Superhorns makes the first move. You think it's going to be a punch to the midsection. Let's see. We could say maybe it's going to be fake. She's probably going for the head, but we're not sure. We could block the blow and counter. Well, we can't. That's not there. Or we could use our spider sense to sense that it's a fake and she's going to go for the legs. Well, even if we're wrong, being confidently wrong is probably better than being unsure. So let's say that we know it's a fake. You guess correctly and leap over Super Horns' leg sweep. The masked wrestler is out of position for a precious moment, and you take advantage of that to press your attack, landing a few solid strikes. But Super Horns fights back with speed that you just can't seem to match, and suddenly you find yourself near the end of the scaffold, backed up to almost against the steel cable that suspends the scaffold from the ceiling of the arena. Sensing that the end is imminent, Super Horns goes down in a low crouch, swaying rhythmically from side to side, eyes never leaving yours. It's do or die time. If you've got a miracle in your pocket, now's the time to use it. Let's see, we could steady ourselves using the cable while we rock the scaffold. We could leap over Super Horns to place her between me and the cable, or use the cable to help evade the next attack. Well, the cable seems like it could be an advantage. We could use it to keep our balance and then rock the scaffold. The second one, I don't actually know why we want to do the second one, because we leap over her, and now Super Horns is between us and the cable. How does that help us? Or we use the cable to help evade the next attack. Well, I mean, if that sounds like it might be the best one, because being able to grab the cable is an advantage that Super Horns doesn't have. Let's try to use the cable. Let's see if that works. We got an achievement. The good thing about appearing to be cornered is that your opponent is going to think that your movements will be constrained. If you can buck that expectation, create space where it wasn't there before, you could win this thing. Super Horns explodes out of her crouch, launching a thrusting sidekick aimed at your midsection. But you're not where you were a second ago. Instead, most of your body is hanging in midair. Only the toes of your left foot perched on the very end of the scaffold, but your left hand is holding onto the cable for dear life. Super Horns' eyes grow wide behind her mask, and in that moment, even before you pull yourself in for a lunging right hook, you know that you've won. You connect with a glancing blow, but it's enough to send the best thing in wrestling spiraling down to the mat. You let out a yell that's drowned out in the approving roar of the crowd and turn to the center of the grid to collect your prize. You're about 4 steps from the belt when Prototype makes his move. That's far enough. You turn to see the Western Heavyweight Champion practically sitting on the bound form of JJ. JJ's arms are tied behind her head with a zip tie. That's an uncommon thing in a wrestling match. While Prototype is JJ's right leg in some kind of hold. The same leg that was injured in the crash. The crash years ago. We could ask if we're supposed to care about that. We could say that our team is still going to win because I'm going to get that belt. Or we could say that this is low, Paul Prototype. Well, we'll say that this is low. Prototype barks a harsh, grating laugh. Girl, if you had any idea of the crap I've had to put up with just to get to where I am now, you wouldn't doubt what I'm capable of. And right now, I'm telling you this. If you don't throw yourself off that scaffold, I will break her so badly that she'll be lucky to be walking in 6 months. I mean, Paul, that'd be a crime. You'll be the champion of jail. You do that, and I'll murder you. Alex wouldn't condone that. You'll be out of a job. I do like the champion in jail thing, so let's say that. Prototype shrugs. Yeah, well, you still won't get your dream match. And let me tell you something about dream matches, girl. All of them have a narrow window of opportunity. If you and JJ don't get to fight by Ring of Valhalla, I don't think you'll ever get to fight at all. Or at least, not on the grand stage. But you don't have to take my word for it. Take the risk if you dare. You look at JJ. She's trembling with rage, but she doesn't say anything. Doesn't even meet your eyes. Fine mess you've put the both of us in, Delgado, you want to say. But the blame for this one isn't on her, not this time. But if you're expecting JJ to ask for your help, you're delusional. If you back off, and if Prototype is a man of his word, then you'll get to face JJ. But even if you win that fight, you doubt Prototype will just give you a shot at his belt. On the other hand, if you get the win for Team Solitary, Solitary will have no choice but to give you the title shot for the most prestigious championship in the world at the biggest wrestling show of the year. You look back at Prototype, and the manic look on his face kills any hope that you'd be able to goad him into fighting fair and square. No, the big man is done taking risks. He's so close to his goal that he can almost touch it, and he's not going to let anything, whether it be you, JJ, or a sense of morals, get in his way. You're not going to settle this with wrestling. Only with words. Your words. Your choice. What's it going to be? Well, we could grab the belt because we want the title match. We could grab the belt because we can't let someone as despicable as Prototype have his way. We could eliminate ourselves. We want the match with JJ more than we want the championship. We could eliminate ourselves. It's the only way to save JJ. We could tell Prototype if he defends the title against us at Ring of Valhalla. Well, you can't just let someone do something like this and then win because of it. You have to teach Paul Prototype a lesson that bullying is just not the way, Paul. It's not the way. I don't know where you strayed from the straight and narrow, Paul Prototype, but I would be remiss. I would be a bad person if I let you gain some sort of reward from this outlandish behavior as I shake my finger at you, so I will grab the belt. Selflessly. I'm grabbing the belt selflessly. You shake your head. I have no choice then, you say. Damn right you don't, laughs Prototype. Now, if you'll just... I'm sorry, JJ. Prototype and JJ's eyes snap to you at the same time, but both of them can do no more than watch as you take 4 steps and unhook the belt from its resting place, holding it high for all the world to see. The sound of an audience of 15,000 losing their minds is almost enough to drown out the muffled shout from JJ as Prototype crushes her ankle. Almost. We did not make a deal with the devil. At the end of it all, a raving Prototype is escorted by security. He's dyed his hair, he's got the glow sticks going, he's wearing the goggles. He's raving all night long. Paramedics arrive to take JJ away. JJ doesn't say a word as you haul her down a ladder. Maybe she's unconscious. Maybe she just doesn't have anything to say. You're still carrying the belt when Solitary limps your way. Your face must show you're concerned, but he shakes his head. I'll be fine, he says. Just a bit tweaked. I mean, my ankle's tweaked, not something else. Solitary looks at the belt in your hand, then at the curtain, through which not only JJ, but Super Horns also has disappeared. I wish this could have happened a different way, for a bunch of reasons, he says. This isn't what I want, you whisper, but I couldn't let Prototype pull it off. And for that you have my gratitude, says Solitary. But I'd be lying if I said that little show you put on didn't get my blood pumping. So, are we still on for the grand stage? You look him in the eye. We could say that this is yours for now. Hand over the belt. Or we could say, unless you just want to give this to me now, we could hand over the belt. We could nod and hand over the belt. Or we could attack him with the belt. Well, sometimes you feel like maybe you're just tired of being pawns in other people's plans. Your attack takes Solitary completely by surprise and knocks the battered champion down to the mat. You smile down at his shocked expression, and throw the belt over him. You're on, champ. But on my terms. You walk out of the ring to a mix of boos and cheers. It seems like the Kuno-esque thing to do. And that takes us to Chapter 12, The Grand Stage, which would mean that it sounds like this is going to be the Ring of Valhalla pay-per-view, where we are going to get the title shot. And that might mean that it is the final chapter. That is loud. Now, someone did say that this was 12 chapters, and if that is the case, it would make sense that the final chapter is the pay-per-view where we're going to get the title shot. However, it turns out that it's a hollow victory because we're not going to get that big grudge match against JJ. We had a choice between the title match or the grudge match, and we had to decide which one was more important to us. Which one was the one that we really wanted. And we might have wanted the JJ match more, but like I said, we can't let a bully like Paul Prototype just get his way. We have to teach him a lesson. And we did. We taught him a lesson. And it just so happens that we have a world title match because of it. And so that's how the pay-per-view ended in Chapter 11, and how the big one, the big pay-per-view, is going to begin as we enter Chapter 12 in our world title match against the best wrestler in the world. And I don't know if we're good enough to beat him. Like, maybe we're not. Maybe we'll just end with us losing and everyone will be very disappointed. That could also be how it goes, but maybe, just maybe, our big woman style will come through in the end, and we'll find out next time in Chapter 12, the grand stage in Slammed.
I'm a god.